Hi everyone, my name is Saket and you are watching the Design Podcast. First of all, let me say thank you very much for your unconditional support, because of which we have been able to reach the 11,000 subscriber mark. That's huge and it means a lot to me and my team. Coming to today's episode, we have another special guest. His name is Chetaan Shedjale. Now we talk about struggles and challenges while pursuing the design education. But this person started his journey almost 20 years back when the awareness about design in India was next to nothing. He comes from a place called Solapur. He was an architecture student back then, and eventually he realized that his true passion lied in automobile designing, and he decided to pursue that in Italy, and the education was only available in Italian, and that's why he had to learn Italian to even study design. Then he started his professional journey under the legendary Massimo Tamburini. We have captured some of the exciting stories with him, and I feel immensely blessed to cover those kind of stories and to listen about the legend which I have always followed from someone who has worked with him. Later, he joined Harley Davidson, where he spent almost a decade, and there also we have captured some of his encounters with Willie Davidson and what were the stories which went behind in designing some of the very well-known popular Harley Davidson bikes, including Street 750. Later, he decided to join BRB to take on the new challenges. Now, this podcast is not just for automobile design students, but for everyone, because he has shared some of the stories and wisdoms which are not only limited to automobile design, but for every designer, which will help you to fast track your journey. There are so many things other than the design skills itself which are necessary in the long run. So we have captured all those things, and that's why I highly recommend you guys to watch this episode and watch till the end. And I have enjoyed it thoroughly, and I hope you will enjoy it too. Without any further ado, let's start the podcast. Chetan sir, first of all, welcome to the Design Podcast. It's such an honor for me to sit with you because I have been following your design journey for quite some time now, and it means a lot to me that I'm sitting here with you and I'm gonna have some one-to-one conversations regarding design, related to design. So I'm really looking forward to this. So thanks for doing this.
No, thank you to you because you were the one who connected with me, and it's my pleasure because at the end, doing something for our own community is something very important, and I do care about it. So yeah, that's
Yeah.
not like it's a good thing. Thank you for connecting with me, and I'm happy to be here with you today.
It's all my pleasure, sir. It's all my pleasure. So let's just jump right into your journey. Uh, I know that you have done architecture before entering into design, and this was quite a long time ago, I would say, where because even now, when we talk about design, I feel the awareness around design is pretty low compared to other countries. In India, I'm specifically talking about. And during that time, you decided to, go from architecture to design. What was that thought process, and how did you come to know that there's this design discipline which even exists, and you can make a career out of it? What was that journey like?
It's a very interesting question, but before I answer your question, please don't call me sir. Chetan is okay.
Okay.
Okay. So that's some being said, and then the question which you asked, it's very interesting because I was studying architecture in Solapur
Okay.
under Shivaji University, right? Um, I had heard of a faculty called product design or industrial design.
Okay.
That's it. But I had heard about it, and in those days, it was just a discussion. But most of us who came from a middle class family, everybody had a dream to just find a job. So even in architecture, it was like, yeah, we will find a job, we'll go there. That's it. That's what how it was. Like you're in Solapur, you go to Mumbai, you go to Bangalore, and you find a bigger job. So those days, the bigger names were like Charles Korea or the Joseph Architects in Bangalore, and people would dream about it. And I was like, no, man, I don't want to do architecture. I'm studying it because that's the only artistic faculty which I was allowed to be in because of the current situations in the country. And I didn't even know NID existed until I came like it was until it was like 2000.
Okay.
In year 2000, I realized through some news articles and stuff that NID is there.
Oh, interesting.
It's like that. Like that. That's how it was. Very rare thing. But thanks to my parents, thanks to my father especially, um, reading articles on design or something was starting to get into a thing. And I was from childhood, I was something interesting was for me was motorcycles, cars, but sketching them or drawing them. I would say in his words, I was drawing them. So whenever I would buy a auto car or those overdrive magazines, or he would buy them for me, I would see a snippet of small sketch or something, and I would say, "How did you do that?" And he would say, "I don't know. You need to search." Internet was so costly, you could not sit an hour just searching a sketch. So somehow, when you have a good intent in your mind, you start building that. So that's the urge to search something made use of internet in a gooder way. And I didn't even have an email account. So how do you start? So okay, there is Yahoo Mail, this, that. So we are talking of where the country grew faster after 2004, 5 in every aspect, right? But I'm talking of 99, 2000, where it was still a base level. People talked about it, but it was very base. And they would say, "Oh, it's very costly, you can't afford. Oh, it's this, you should not do this. You just better find a job." And I had to go against all these odds and the preset mindset of a typical society in that way, where you have to move towards them. So the search and the parents both help to move forward. And in that I found out NID has an entrance exam and so and so so and so. So okay, let's try that. So you go to JJ College of Arts to give your exams because I was from Maharashtra side, and I just did it like as if I know something. That's it. And I didn't realize, but those days they used to call you because there was no internet as a communication thing. So they called at my house, and my mom was like, "Mera bacha nahi hai ghar pe." And when they called next time, they said, "You have been selected for an interview at Paldi, Ahmedabad. You need to go there." Again, there were odds. Gujarat riots were happening.
Oh, really?
Same time.
Okay.
Same time riots are happening, and the interview was there. And they said, "We will not change the dates." Yeah. So I go there with my uncle. And while going there, I had this in my mind. I'm gonna go there with a portfolio. The odd portfolio which people had. Everybody came there from different like the students who were selected. They all came there, but some of them had their articles, written articles. Some of them had some big architecture portfolios and stuff. I decided I'm gonna do a handbook, like just a folio of 10 pages, and it was all core product motorcycle stuff, which was my core thing. And I invested my time. We did that. My dad was my curator in a way, and being an artistic family background, he kind of helped in that. And we did a 10 or 20 pages art book. Okay. So I did some things, and he helped me to place them. And then I would write by hand itself because no computerization still. So I wrote some things and stuff like that. I go there to the interview. I had also a working prototype of a pump. Oh. A small pump which you use it by using those days you can buy from like in here in Pune you can buy in Solapur Bazaar a small pump of like I think today it will cost you 100 rupees. So you put that and then you arrange all the gears and stuff. It was a suction pump. And it would work as a fountain pump. And it was my urge to learn that. My dad helped me. We created it together in some way. So these were small things of learning, like the mechanical or the pragmatic mind, and how you create design with that was there all the time. Okay. It was supported strongly from the family side of it. Architecture was just a base. So I will always say architecture was a base for me, which helped just to understand the basics. But NID was the opening door. That's where the journey starts. Like, okay, product design. But then me discussing again, father comes into this all connection. Me discussing with my father, being in Marathi, we were talking. My dad said, "Jar tu hita jinkat asshil," means if you're making your name here, maybe why not try in a country where design is really valued?
Wow.
And that's how Italy comes into the play.
Mm.
So from architecture, you start migrating slowly. So you are using architecture as your base to understand materials and, like, okay, steel is there, extrusion. What we talk today as everyday language,
Mm.
like, casting here, casting. Okay, casting. What is casting? It was there, words were there. I did not know the whole process, but architecture helped. And slowly the search and the Google helped. That's how SPD came into the play.
Okay.
So, we were talking before we started, SPD was just a basic thing again, and I had just sent my email, simple email with this same NID portfolio of 20 pages, which were scanned by that time. It was a hard thing to scan even color copies.
Wow.
So you're struggling everywhere, but the struggle was fun struggle. It was not about like, "Arey yaar, this is not happening. This is not happening." No, it was happening thanks to, again, like, my dad would find out in Solapur somebody scanning in color. Okay, go there.
Wow.
Or somebody would help. Something would happen. Somehow that's how it happened. And then when I sent the portfolio and things, a small letter to SPD, they said, "We are interested in you. Can you talk with us?" And it was a phone call. They called me on a phone call and we discussed. They said, "We will select you." That's how, the ticket for Milan was signed. But then the bigger task was finances. You are again from a middle class family. They were asking a certain amount of money to be paid. Now SPD is super costly. Those days it was not that much. But the twist was I had to learn Italian.
Oh, okay.
So the education was in Italian those days. Now it's in English. Those days it was in Italian.
So there were no foreign students like that.
No, there were students from other countries also, but they all, including me, were asked to study Italian for 2 months, a crash course.
Okay.
So I had to pay for that. And I started studying Italian in Mumbai in Italian Chamber of Commerce for like a month. So I got the basics. The finances had to be arranged, which is basically my dad's life savings. Once you're struggling through because the banks are not recognizing this master's program, because banks would recognize only if you had higher marks or like the university certificates like topper and stuff. You needed to be that, all right. Means India is all about you need to be the topper, you need to be this, you need to be that, and then only the bank would sign a check for you of like 20 lakh rupees, 30 lakh rupees that time period. And they would not recognize this, and they would be like, "What is this? This course design? Is your son going there for this? Better don't send him." Many people said to my dad, but my dad was like against odds, and he said, "No, he wants to do this. I think it is going to make something sense, but let's see what will happen. I don't know, but it might be a risk, but I trust him." So the trust was there, and but he had to give up his life savings, and that was a pressure on me in a way. So we bought the flights, arrived in Milan. Again, the journey keeps on going in that loop, right? You arrive in Milan, you don't know how to speak Italian. Again, it's a big deal. So somehow you manage to go to the school first day. You arrive there, you rent apartment, slowly you settle down. Then the actual design part of the journey starts. And it was a crash course of like 12 months, constant, every day. So you would go early in the morning, changing 2 metro lines because the school was on one end, house you can't afford. So you are living in a smaller apartment far away from the city. So it's like, but if you go look back at it, I would not call it as a struggle. It was a fun ride, journey, which made me who I am today with language skills. People on the metro would teach me a lot, visualizing them, because Milan is full of design. Anywhere you walk and go, there are supermodels in doing the journey in metro with you. Early in the morning, people would read newspapers, so I started reading newspaper Italian, which was free of cost. So you would pick up and you would read news, and you would also see the advertisements. You would also see how visually it is communicated, or even just the dressing sense of those guys who are going to the office or some other meeting or whatever it is. That all started teaching you a life lesson. Whereas you are going to the school to learn design or to become a designer, life lessons were also getting taught, and it was a fun ride. SPD was really good, but then again, you complete the course, you need to find a job, and that's where I started making connections, which we were talking before when we met. Also, right? Connecting people is one important aspect in your life if you are from design community, especially because people can be helpful. People can be directing you to other people if they can't do that or something. And that's how it started. The first guy I met was, I still remember his name, Hans Futsik. He was from Mercedes AMG Design. And he said, look, I can't help you in this, but you want to find an internship or something. I think this is the guy's name and you need to contact him, and this is the email.
Okay.
And those days I used to carry floppy disks as my portfolio. So just imagine portfolio in a floppy disk to today we have it on a drive, and just you push the button and it's done, to where it was those days. So I connected to these people, which Mr. Hans Putsik gave me. Out of them, one responded, and that's how I ended up finding a connection in advanced design Fiat. And those days in advanced design Fiat, they were doing Fiat 500 as a concept car project.
Okay.
And I became part of that international community, which was working on the interior of the Fiat 500, which you guys see today. And it was just a concept those days. So we were looking at different materials to be used. And that's how I got exposed to rotomolding. The different types of injection plastics, which with textures and stuff, those were all new stuff those days. Like we are talking of 2003, 2004. That time period, it was just coming up. These are small things, and it helped, and it helped to learn. In the meantime, I had connected with some small studio in Milan. Not even Milan; it was like an hour and a half away from Milan. It was doing just motorcycles, which was my passion again. So I ran towards my passion, but slowly. It was not getting there constantly. It was a hurdle all the time.
I was actually gonna ask you, because you were trying for that motorcycle passion of yours, but on the go there were like too many deviations.
Yeah.
But still you were like focused.
See, the focus part of it is very important in anybody's life. If you want to do something, you need to be focused. But to survive, you need to find something also. So you keep doing something which is your day-to-day kind of, but your focus will be there. And that's what happened with me. I connected with a small design studio who was doing motorcycles for Chinese or for Taiwanese companies.
Okay.
And that's where I met my first mentor, John. And with John, we had a good relationship. Now he is a very good friend of mine. And he guided me because he was an ex-Honda from Rome, Honda's Rome studio. So he saw the talent, and he said, there is something, I will make it more better for you if you can give me, like, let's say 4 weeks of your time.
Okay.
And that's where I said, okay, I'm here for it, for all the things. I'm doing this internship in Fiat, but I'm not in cars, but I want to go in motorcycles. He said, okay, let's try. And I used to do the day job kind of in Fiat and then go to his studio in the evening, and he would give me a task. I would sleep at his studio.
Wow.
And I would do all night some work and keep it on his table, and next morning you're back in the studio in Fiat. And it happened for a month or two, and I grew up very fast because I was dedicated, or passion was there for motorcycles. what happened is John kind of took my hand. Literally, let's say he took my hand and he started giving me the direction to how to draw ellipse.
Okay.
Perspective kaise hote hain, this and that, the proportions. And if I would draw a sketch, he would say this is a Honda, this is a Kawasaki, this is a Suzuki, or you need to work for a Ducati, then you need to do this. And that's how I got exposed to different names in the industry of motorcycle industry, especially. And then he provided also contacts, and one of them was CRC, or Massimo Tamburini studio, that is CRC.
Okay.
And we had no expectation that I will find an internship or a job or something. We started sending my portfolio, which was recreated thanks to John's help. We created a portfolio, and it was sent to everybody. And John would help me to print it, all that stuff. So he knew I didn't have money, so he would give me money for that all. And he stood by me. And the fun part was we sent it to several design studios, Aprilia, Ducati. Many of them responded to that.
Okay.
Before, when I would connect, nobody would respond. So I kind of realized my material was not that good. The portfolio was not that good, so they would not talk.
Okay.
Now people are talking and they're saying, we are sorry, we can't hire you, we don't have this, there is not a position, blah, blah, blah. And one fine day, I'm in studio in Fiat. One morning, this lady calls me and she starts talking in Italian and says, Pronto, signor Tamburini vuole parlare con voi. What? And I say, I speak in English. Can we talk in English? Because this is getting harder for me to speak in Italian because I'm like shaking. She's like, no, Tamburini doesn't talk in English. I'm like, holy crap, okay. So he gets the call. He says, can you come on Thursday? And he cuts off.
Okay.
And then the lady calls me back, the assistant. She calls me and she says, are you okay with Thursday? I was like, yeah, I'm okay. I'm in cloud 9 already. Right? I'm like, oh God, what is this? So somehow, then I realized, okay, San Marino. It's another country. The fun part is we Indians, we don't even know many small things. So I'm like, passport leke jana padega kya? So I called again John. Like, John is like, dude, this is the best thing. That guy spoke with you. I'm like, yeah. And for me, it was like, yeah, he spoke with me. And they are like, Arey, bhai, means, the god of motorcycle industry in a way, called you and he spoke with you and you were just saying, yeah. Like, what do I say? I don't know. So somehow, that day it was a nice one, but then 2 days later I booked a ticket and I went to Rimini. Rimini is in Italy, southeast Italy. And then you go there to San Marino by bus. Those days commute was also harder, but anyhow somehow I reached the studio. I used to have a big ponytail and stuff, and it was very weirdly, like I was making sure I'm looking like a designer, let's say. So when I reached there, the lady said, yeah, sit down, he's waiting for you. So I go there. I had this big book of all motorcycles only and some cars, and they were all hand drawn and big ones and stuff. So I took that and I placed on the table. This big man, he says, welcome, thank you, sir. You want water or something? I was like, no, I'm good. I'm like shaking, because I want a job with him, but I can't show that. I'm emotionally, and he could sense it. He's a big man. He could sense it, and he's like, okay, how old are you? Like, sir, I'm 25. Okay. So you're from India? Like, yes, sir. So, okay. And this is all in Italian, okay? This flow is in Italian. He has a strong accent, which is Romagnolo strong accent from Emilia Romagna. And I was catching a little bit. I was not catching all the things.
Okay.
And he said, are you able to understand me? I was like, yeah, a little bit. Okay. If you want to work here, you need to learn Italian very well, because I talk only in Italian. He joked at me and he started laughing. I was laughed because he was a chain smoker. He just lights up a cigarette and he says, okay, show me what you have. So the interview was started already. I didn't even know. That's how life is, right? So I show him first sketch. It was a 3/4 view. I still remember it looked like a Yamaha sketch. 3/4 view, bike on a stand. He says, yeah, it looks more Japanese. Show me something else. So we flipped 2 pages. He saw a side view which was more in his realm, more like in a sports bike, but with more feeling of an Italian flavor, with little bit of Indian achar in it. Means that's how I would call it. And he takes the book and he closes and he says, "Walk with me." I'm like, "Abhi kya ho gaya?" That's what happening. So we walk out of his room. He badges and he opens the studio. He says, "This is where you will sit. Are you okay with that?" I'm like, "Yes, sir. Why not?" And the other guys who are in the line, they are like, "Congratulations." I'm like, "Did I get a job? Did I get an internship? I don't know anything. I'm not understanding." And the manager of the studio, he speaks broken English, Fabio, who is a good friend now. He's like, "Everything is okay." And I'm like, "So job is okay?" I'm asking him because Tamburini, while smoking, he just goes out.
Okay.
And he's like, "Walk with me." He wanted to show the whole entire space, the design studio, the mechanic shops, the clay mall. So I start running behind him. He shows me everything and he says, "This is the environment. This looks like a factory, but it's a studio. And this is my cherished place. So space, and if you are willing to, this is the space you are going to work." So yes. So I spoke with Fabio and Fabio said, "I'll drop you to the train station. Don't worry." And I sat there for like 30, 40 minutes and I saw the whole aura of this big man. And in like those 30, 40 minutes, he just spoke with me for another 10 minutes, like, "Hey, stay good," and all. And he starts his AMG and he goes off. That's it. That was his day of the work day was that. So Fabio said, "Yeah, Tamburini is like that. Don't worry. It's the designer world. Welcome to the world of design." Okay. He drops me. I go back, and I was asked to send the documents in. So the bureaucratical part took a while, like another 3 months.
Oh.
I called my dad from the train station. I said, I had tears. I'm getting goosebumps again. I had tears in my eyes, and I said, "I think we achieved something as a team." Because he stood by me. And I told him that day who was this person. And my dad doesn't know anything. He said, "Okay, I'm happy for you." But then Tamburini was just amazing, the whole experience. Next 5 years, went down the road with him every day. The first 3 months were just amazing because I was asked to see all the sketches done by hand from Sam Matthews, Peter Blanche, Adrian Morton. So I'm talking of all these big names. They all were working there or they had been there. Internship like Sergio Robbiano. These names which we talk about, they all had been there. So I'm in the sanctuary or the temple of motorcycle design for motorcycles, sports motorcycles or naked motorcycles. I started realizing that it was just fun. Because and Tamburini's request to me was, don't even draw a line. Watch all these sketches and learn from that what you see. See the projects, what have been done. From Ducati Pazzo to like a 916, why the tank had the sculpt. There was a sketch after the sculpt was done in clay. So go meet the clay guy, talk with him. Why the clay guy also works as a welder. Till then, I had heard about Tamburini, who was in his actual life a plumber who became a motorcycle designer.
Okay.
So he knew the basics of welding and techniques, and he was a passionate, avid motorcycle rider and a racer who dreamed of making his own bike for himself to race for fun on a weekend. This guy, Mr. Tamburini, Massimo Tamburini, he had I would say a cunning knack.
Okay.
He created a team of engineers and mechanical drawing guys to mechanics who were all avid, passionate characters. So when I'll give you an example. Like if you want to make a good pasta, you need to have a good sauce. Pasta alla dente, you boil the pasta, you have the pasta ready. The sauce is an important thing. This guy, he knew how to bring all together and stew it properly. And he was the chef. So he would knew who brings what 1 milligram salt or sugar, or that's what it was. And he had this, and because he worked as a plumber, because he worked as a low wage worker in his life, he knew how to be humble, he knew how to be a team member of this team, and he would not say always, I am the director, I am the guy who makes the decision. It was all of us.
Okay.
And that's how F4 happened, that's how Brutale happened, that's how 999, like not 999, but yeah, the 916 happened, or Ducati Pazzo happened before even the Supermono happened. Those things which happened in his studio, the Kajiva Gran Premio happened. There is Mito, the Kajiva Mito happened. Means these things happened over a period of time. By the time I reached the studio, I was at his last peak of his, the hurrah moment. Like, he retired after I left the company. He also left the company. Like, it was back to back. We both are like, he left and I left. So I know, like, that way how he created the legacy. And we used to make his CV, right? Sometimes we journalists would ask. So I would read, like, he has like 45 design patents. And I would like, how I would get one of it. That was there. Today I'm really proud about that he inspired, and I have 12.
Wow.
So so when you work with someone or under someone who has a legendary stature, or someone who teaches you a certain thing like that, it just changes the game. Means a small town guy from Solapur who had dreamed of something reaches to the pinnacle of motorcycle industry, or the guy who is called Michelangelo di motociclismo. That's what the Italians say. It was just an awestruck for first 4-5 months, but then it became a routine. He would come, talk with you while smoking, while taking a coffee, and he would guide. He didn't have a design process, which we will talk a lot here. In India, we talk a lot about theory, a theoretical part of design. He didn't have that. But he had a knack of picking things from each one of us. Like, he would say, Chetan, I want some speedometers. Maybe it will be for next year. Why don't you start today?
Okay.
Then what Chetan would do is, he would just draw something. Or it will come after 2 years maybe. But you start. And then you start going in details of the, small things. Okay, the cluster will be here, the telltales are here, this. And we are still not in the digital format where we jump into Photoshop and do things, which is more easy, like, Control, Alt, Delete, and you delete. I was working with letter set for rendering tools. So when you have an idea, you are illustrating with letter set and the aerographo. Like aerographo is in Italian, but I don't know what you guys call it.
Something like a marker?
Letter jet. Basically, it's like a marker with a spray gun.
in it. Oh, okay.
The spray gun. So I took a command on it quite well. So, it was very interesting to see Mr. Tamburini. I call him Mr. Tamburini because he was the guy. He had this, like, a knack of finding small snippets from different people working in the company. It was not a design process like, okay, you do the sketch, then you do the clay. No, it was not like that. He would ask, like, okay, hey, I might need a few wheels for next year or next couple of weeks, a couple of years later. Why don't you start drawing them? And you might start drawing, and the rule was, once you go for lunch or when you're done working, you're not going to keep everything inside the table, under the table or something. You're going to spread it out on the table and you go.
Okay.
He would come by himself, alone, in his lone time, smoking around or taking a coffee. He would pick, like, okay, I like this, I would like this. And he would take those all on his table. And next morning he would come back to you and he would say, can you elaborate this a little bit more? Can you do this a little bit a la Ferrari or that Lamborghini or something he had seen which might connect to this? And then that's how these things are born. And that's how F4 or even the newest F4 was born, was that way, because he always wanted the surfaces in a certain way. So he would say, okay, have you seen that GT series car or something? So it was always a inspiration. It was always a connection between different things, and he would join. And that's the core of his design working process, where the designer was there at his service, maybe let's call it, but he was the chef who was using it as a condiment. You know, means you have some spicy oil, you have some this and that, and then he would mix it, and that's the wow factor. And that, I think, that was the thing which I learned from him a lot, was that. And being humble to the people, you can't be, you can't be just saying, hey, do as I say, versus see what who brings to the table.
Yeah.
And that's very important learning, which I think we don't have it today. Many of our design leaders, they just go and say, hey, I think you should do this, versus what you have done, show me how it can be improvised. Maybe it can sound good with mine and yours, and then there is an idea for you or for X, Y, Z. That's what his style was, and I think I learned a lot under him in that way. And also clay modeling, he loved clay. So he took care of me as a son, and it was a great relationship. It was a camaraderie, and that made me more comfortable in the design world. So the learning was, you might have to have not just one way of looking at it. And design is not about a solution. We all like to have a solution. We want to have a quick idea, but for that idea, you might get inspired by even just a simple fashion aspect, a cell phone, and that's what I learned from him. Like, he would not fixate on just a special sports car or something. And he had the Ferrari, he had the AMG, he had those 20 odd motorcycles, but he still would always go out in all the dealerships around nearby there, on the track, how the carbon fiber material is developed. He would go to those factories. I mean, he would take us. He would take us with him. He would drive there. He would show us. He would say, hey, maybe that is the way we should do what you are doing. Maybe it is the one. This is how it is, or and that's how it was. So it kind of like it makes you who you are, or you start getting more confident in doing things, explaining to the people, expressing your idea, expressing your thoughts. I think that's what was the base of it, and that helped. And I think he decided to retire around 2009, and I moved out of the CRC in 2010.
Okay.
So yeah.
Now, before we go into your journey further, because Massimo Tamburini, like everybody knows that he's a legend, and it's very rare that you get to meet someone who has worked with him.
Yeah.
So I want to add one more question to this, because you have quite elaborately explained about how he was and what was the learnings and all.
Yeah.
But what was interesting was that you said that he didn't have a specific design process per se. But let's say if we have to somehow summarize, because this will be a great learning for designers like me as well. If you have to summarize his approach towards designing a motorcycle, what would that be? As in, what will be the snippets of all the steps, let's say, into his approach towards a particular motorcycle design project?
Yeah, but for him it was very clear. He would say in Italian, he would speak and he would say la ciclistica è la cosa più importante di questa tutta fase. That is like the frame, the wheel to wheel base, the dimensions, and the rider triangle.
Okay.
That is the more core of it. And if your core essence, the base architecture is right, no matter how much you destroy the design aesthetically, it will start looking good after some refinement. So he would give us the chance to go and do some bad work also, so that we know what is the good side of it. But for that, the architecture was the more important thing. Like the frame plates, the frame, the trellis frame, which he invented basically. Now everybody uses it and they call, oh, we did a trellis. But do you guys know who did it first? It was him and Dervis Maccarelli. Dervis was his assistant, who was also a plumber,
Okay.
who became a rider like him.
Okay.
And they both invented this trellis frame and they sold it to Kawasaki.
Okay. Invented as in, what do you mean by that?
Okay, these guys were working as plumbers. So
Okay.
they knew only about tubes.
Okay.
And they realized, okay, by doing a frame of tubes
Uh,
and mounting it on the engine, the motor and the whole thing would have a lighter aspect, right? The ratio which we are looking for. Whereas the older generation box frames were heavier, some of the parts were casting, they were also heavier. So the bike would not lean at that speed at a certain angle and certain thing. They realized this by testing every day
okay.
on their own bikes, which were like crashed bikes. They would crash it. So it was just like whole week they would try. On a Saturday morning, you would go there on the track in Misano or nearby the roads, whichever road track they would create by themselves, which was illegal, but they would do that. And they would ride around and they would come back and they would say, okay, this is working. And that's how they got into this whole business. And that's how they both, with other people, like the Bimota was formed. And Bimota's star is Tamburini, which is a story everybody knows. I don't want to go in that detail, but that's what it is. And Tamburini was the chief technical officer for today's generation. He was the chief designer of Bimota. But those days, no names were given, no tags were given. He was just a technical guy who was running the show. And there was the business aspect of it, which was running by the other guys. And you know, that's how he was. So he created this and he would always say, la ciclistica. And he would say always to me, like, Chetan, la ciclistica è la cosa più importante. Noi dobbiamo fare quella. Okay. Initially, I would not even know. But today, after doing several motorcycles, I kind of know what he means. What is the fork angle? Why the fork angle creates a certain reverse action or these things which we talk in technical terms. He would explain it that way. So,
wow, what an inspiring, interesting story, I would say, because this somehow defines the true passion, no? Because he was doing it only because of passion, because he was enjoying riding, and probably he wanted to perfect that riding machine for himself.
yes.
And doing so many trial and errors,
Yes.
and eventually, like, he got to express that in a more formal and
Yeah.
professional way. But such a legend, right? As in even now when I'm listening to all these stories, like, who would have thought like a plumber would end up becoming a motorcycle design legend for the entire fraternity. So that it's all such an amazing thing. And the names you mentioned in between, like Pierre Blanche or Adrian Morton, all these guys have become like huge names,
Yes.
right? Even today, and they themselves have become legends in
Yeah.
their own way.
Yeah.
So it's amazing, even talking like that, like talking about them and about this, it's giving me goosebumps. So crazy. I'm very inspired, I must say. But now let's go to the next phase of your journey, I would say, because you got this wonderful start to your career in motorcycle design, and finally you were doing something which you and your father had planned for all this while. So how did the Harley Davidson happen?
So during 2009, CRC was going through financial crunch, and CRC comes under MV Agusta brand, and Castiglione was the owner of the company,
Right.
and he was looking to reorg and rearrange the teams and everything in general, which happens in every company does. And 2009 financial crisis was hit badly for also MV in that way. And Tamburini had retired, so he was out of the company. So in a way, somebody who I adored or learned a lot, or I call him my father of my career path, he was not there. So I was like also not interested. And I took the chance and we said, okay, We, in the sense, I would consult Tamburini those days also on a call or go to his house and sit at his house and talk about my career paths. He said, "Yeah, it's a chance you need to take," and that's how I decided to do freelancing in Italy. So I set up my own small company and I started doing freelancing. And the freelancing time period, I was doing a consulting job, which was on payroll, but it was with Husqvarna BMW. BMW used to own Husqvarna those days, and I was part of their team. And we were doing street-oriented motorcycles for Husqvarna.
Oh, and this is which year? Again, 2008, you said?
2009 end to 2010 middle.
Okay.
I was part of Husqvarna's team for the ongoing process of like research, which BMW had pumped in money for the parallel twin, which they had got from Aprilia in collaboration, the 650, which was done later on, called Husqvarna Terra and Strada. So I was part of that journey for Husqvarna in those days under Raffaele Zaccagnini. Again, one more connection. Raffaele was in a way connected to Tamburini in some other way, and he kind of contacted me through Tamburini, and he said, "Hey, look, I'm looking for a guy who has worked and who knows a little bit about these all things. Can you come and work?" I said, "Okay," and that's what it was. In the meantime, I had sent my portfolio to different connections. Thanks to Tamburini and Paolo Bianchi from CRC, who had given me contacts in Harley.
Okay.
Because Harley was owned by MB for a short time period. That time period, these guys had connected each other and stuff. And Harley was looking for a guy who could speak Italian, Indian languages, and he's a designer, and he is able to or capable to have a managerial approach to a project, because they were in the process of developing Street 750, which the world knows as Street 750. I knew it was only as G46, Go for 6, because it was only India target market product that time.
Okay, so that position was like literally meant for you, like you
Yeah,
said.
so it was a happy marriage between two parties, because they were looking for somebody and I was looking for a job in the West.
Oh, is it?
Or I was interested in something different than just what I was doing in Italy. And that's how it happened. And then I got a call from Ray Dre, who was that time director, and later he became VP of design for Harley. And under him there was Frank Savage, who became later on, I would say, a mentor in many ways. Frank and Ray, both of them helped to be who I am in the custom motorcycle world, or whatever you can call like that. And they both really helped. Ray called me. He said, "Would you like to come and meet us in Milwaukee?" And till then, I had not been anywhere in the western part of the world, or US or anything like that. Europe was my destination, or I was looking into work and on the Europe part of it. And they were pretty gracious. They offered the flights and stuff, so I took the visa, went there for the meeting. Till then, again, it's a awestruck moment, right? Means Harley Davidson, 125-year-old company, big buildings, everything is big. Everybody who has been into US, they realize the scale and the mass is different than what we are in Europe or in India or in Asia. It's different. I went there. It was a Friday night I arrived. Monday morning was my meeting or interview, we call it. I did not know who is going to be there in the meeting or anything like that. Ray had set it up. The assistant of Willie G. Davidson, that time I met her first time, Christine Egger. She came to pick me up at the hotel, and I went with her, and I was like, "Yeah, this is beautiful. This city is looking good." And I did not know what they were looking for, means I'm just going there. And they said, "We have a project, can you come?" I was like, "Okay, let's go. Adventure is adventure, right?" So I went there. Again, same thing. And now the portfolio has become digital. So you are showing the portfolio on a big screen. Everybody in the room are mostly Kirk Rasmussen, Brian Nelson. These all names are very big names in USA. These guys were working there in Harley for, let's say, 20 odd years altogether. Frank, I think he worked for 25 years. Ray, 30 years. Like they are all like legends of their own kind, and they have been working. They all sat there, and Frank is talking with me, and he's making me comfortable. We are going through the slides. I went through like 4 or 5 slides, and then I had some custom bikes because I was going there, so I had done some custom, or not custom, but cruiser bikes and like that. One chair was empty on my side.
Okay.
I didn't realize who was going to sit there or something. At a point, the meeting room opens, and there comes the big man. And he keeps his coffee, that's a typical American style. So he had this big Starbucks, big one. He keeps on the table and he sits next to me, and he just like, pounds on my hand, and he says, "How are you?" And that typical Willie G sound, like, "Hi, sir." That typical way. Like, "Yeah, I'm doing good, sir." And I stood up, and Frank said, "No, don't worry, sit down." Okay. Again, you start the process. I go through another 2 sketches, and he just says to me, Willie says to me, he looks at me, he says, "This is all okay. Ray will talk with you about the contract. I think you are a good guy." I don't know what is going on. And again, it's a fun thing, but Ray said, "Well, the big man has said you're good, so let's go for lunch." So the portfolio was not even seen fully. I shut it off. We go to get the lunch. I eat with them. After eating, they say, "Let's talk about the contract," because it was a contract-based job for first phase of the work. That time they showed me a sketch of Street 750.
Okay.
That's the first time I saw the sketch of Street 750, and they said, "Will this sell in India?" I said, "No, this might have to have this changed. That's the thing." And then I started talking. I had learned a little bit about how to sales pitch things. And I said, "Look, the fork angle might not work. The chassis looks a little bit weird. The tire sizes are too small, this and that." And so Frank said, "Okay, propose us what you think." And that's how the relationship started. I came back to Italy, stayed in Italy for like another 3-4 months while I'm working with them online. And then I went back to US, and that's the journey started of flights. Like basically, I'm in a flight every 15 days between Bologna in Italy, then Milwaukee, then New Delhi in India. So I'm just like going around. Once I went to South Korea, but it was all about this product to be made for India. Later on, by 2013, so by 11, I got hired full time. So I shuttered down all my stuff in Italy. I literally closed everything. Then I moved to US. I made my base in US in Wauwatosa, and I started living and working there in Harley. And I was working on G46, that is Street 750, and then the concept bikes, which were attached with Street 750. So, the transition was from sports motorcycles or these high down, like, the lines which are going down, crashing on your front wheel, to all of a sudden more straighter lines and plain lines and plain feel, but still very arrogant. Or I would call Harley as arrogant of this whole lineup of things, because when they present themselves, they're like, my brother says to me, like, "No, Harley's this, and like these are all XYZ are here, and Harley's here." And that's the difference I learned there. Willie was a great influencer, because Willie G. Davidson, grandson of Davidson family, designer, artist. Through him, I learned one thing, which was teamwork. It was more about team. He would, same typical Tamburini style, nitpicking everybody's table. He would arrive early in the morning, taking coffee, walk around, what you're going to do, what you are doing. And he would say, "I like that, give it to me. I like that, give it to me." And then he would go to the board of director or in the management meeting, and he would say, "This is what my kid has done, maybe we need to do this, not that, what you think." So you start learning the trades of the business. So you're not just drawing, you're not just sketching, but you're making a difference. You're bringing the value to the company, you're bringing the financial aspect, you start learning. And that's what Willie was great about. He would say, like, "This fat Bob, this way, this this frame angle, this will work, and it really worked. So it was all like, again, this is all goes through the gut feeling, also how the brand is, what's the brand perception value around. It's not just like, okay, I want, like, there are a lot of copies we see, and it was not that.
Like 2013-ish, when the street was, like
Yeah,
first
14.
seen 14, right? So that time, and it was the time when I was also starting my kind of, focused professional design journey per se. So Street 750 was something which was, it, like, there might be lovers and haters of that bike, whatever it is, but it was absolutely a stunning bike. And when it came from Harley Davidson, the brand which was always seen as a, someone who was making bikes which are like little heavy, longer, and all those things, Street 750 kind of made a mark in a very unique way because it was meant for, daily commute, so to say, and also like it made a lot of sense for India as well because in India the infrastructure is not like US, right? Where you have freeways and pretty pristine roads per se. So you need little bit more of ground clearance and all those things, and not so long wheelbase is gonna help you. So I think that Street 750, and also with the styling you were saying that all the horizontal lines, and it created that mark. I wanna ask you this thing that when you were launching this very radical sort of a product coming from a brand which had its own legacy. Uh, how did you kind of convince them? Because you were also telling in between that when Billy G was coming to you and you were telling, like you were convincing him. So tell us a little bit more about that. What was that conversation and how did you convince such a very, unique sort of a product which might look little radical or weird at that point in time when people didn't see the result of it?
Well, it also goes back to the market research which was done, which was thoroughly done by Harley's team with Ken Osterman.
Okay.
He came to India several times, and with him, Ken Lasso, Ken Osterman, 3-4 people, they did a huge market research where they understood actually what the customer was wanting.
Okay.
And it helped us to get down to those key words, which was like, I want a liquid cool, I want to do a stop to stop race, but I want a little bit of contemporary, but I want a Harley also. But I'm a 5'5", so I want to be flat feet. When I'm riding and I'm stopping, I want to be flat feet.
You want to toe touch basically.
Yeah. So these things were told directly by the customer, and then it helped us to do that. So my job was more easier because the keywords were already there. It was just, amalgamating them and getting the key essence of it in the form of sketch, in the form of clay, in the form of, future developments. So it helped us in that way, and it gave us a story. So the story was right away written by the customer itself. And that's where I realized and I understood very well why Harley is successful or why a certain brand is successful, because they really value whom they talk with, and they make sure they kind of join these two things together and they make a nice blend. And that's what my job was. So my job was more easier in convincing, because we said, okay, we are going to do not a traditional fender, but a more little bit contemporized, but still a Harley. We will do a certain wheelbase and we will do a certain tire width with the thing maintaining that it is not the European curvy roads, but it is more of the Asian curvy roads or the Australian curvy roads or something like that. So it helped to build that. So it was easier to talk with Willie in that way. And simple as a speedometer or a horn cover or a coil cover also. It was clear. Yeah, we want the skull, because Harley is mainly a skull and those all things. How do you contemporize it? And that's where Chetan was more added to the flavor, because I was coming from Europe. So I did not know what is traditional part of it. For that, they had designers for traditional. I was the one who was adding the flavor, which is more like this. And I would say we could do this. And so you could see that impact in 2014 when we launched the Street 750. We had also three custom bikes,
Hmm.
advanced design custom bikes. One was done by Dice Nagao, and two were done by me. One was RDX 800, which later on became the Street Rod 750.
Okay.
And the other custom bike was Urban Custom Bike, which was purely inspired from Italian flavor.
Hmm.
Big wheels, tuning fork wheels basically, with nice details, with orange flavor in it. Engine heads were painted, margarita brakes, which you would not see that much because it was more sports oriented with a
Ah,
touch
yeah.
in that. So I was bringing my flavor and I was adding, and they liked it because I was not afraid of swearing.
Hmm.
So you need to be bold no matter you are failing. You will fail once or twice, but not always, right? But the failure should be learned also that why did I fail? And then we can, you figure it out.
When we talk about Harley and talk about how important is it to have that right triangle and everything. So I want to understand that it has this very forward leaning kind of mass, a pretty not very relaxed gesture, but pretty active gesture, so as to say.
Yeah.
So how did you land to that particular gesture? Because it was quite, as I said earlier also, it was quite prominent and extreme when you talk about Harley Davidson brand, uh, which always created those chopper kind of bikes, which is relaxed,
Yeah,
which is
you're sitting like that
like
versus the
correct.
kind of like leaning towards the forward. It was more of again, it comes down to the market research
Market
which
research.
was done.
Hmm.
It helped us to get a target base. Like, the target audience was like, let's say from the age group of 27 to 37, 40, 40-ish max. So those guys, either they are migrating from a cruiser-ish product in India or in Asian market or in global market, or they are migrating from a smaller CC sports bike.
Interesting.
So how would you adjust him to our product and make him fall in love with it, and slowly he migrates towards our bigger cruiser bikes. So Street was the base for this, and that's why we made it in that way in those days when Frank was also talking. The discussion was always like, okay, we are going to do this, but just a little, not too much. And there was an idea behind that because the powertrain was designed by Jamie McNaughton, who is now a NASCAR design engineer for engines. He was designing it, and he was the actual Harley drag race programs manager.
Wow.
So the powertrain was performing so well in the tests, we understood, okay, if we do a cruiserish, it's not going to help. So, okay, we are going to give them a little bit of feel, this, that. And that's how the segment, like the second model, which was born, Street Rod 750, you see, it's almost like the more of a drag race-ish feel, but it's not there, but it's a little bit more of like the flat track racing. It's a mix of things. And that's what it was. And RDX was in between to give that feel. And we tested with the concept bike in Milan, and people asked more about that white bike than the Street. And we understood, okay, that's the one. So then you plug in and then you start doing it. So that's
Interesting. Wow, what a beautiful journey. And now that like you started your career under Tamburini, worked for so many, iconic products for there, and then Harley Davidson. And Harley Davidson, if I'm not wrong, you were there for almost 13 odd years.
No, it was roughly 10-year
10 years.
period from contract to
Okay.
employee altogether. So I was there till 2020.
Okay. And now you are at BRP.
Yes.
Please tell us a little bit more about BRP and your role over there.
Okay. So right now, I joined BRP in 2020, and I was literally hired for a certain project. We can't talk about all the conflict because it's still confidential. But as such, BRP is a design-driven company, I feel, because the person at the helm, Denis Lapointe, he is just amazing. His vision, his philosophy is totally different. He is the chief design officer for BRP, and he drives it. And I'm in awestruck of him, like how he thinks and how he works. It's just amazing the way they have this culture, and they have created this global studios around, small ones. They all pitching. It's a nice it's a nice community between in our own self, and they do value, because we BRP as a company, we have products in from water sports to leisure, like leisure marine, and then we go into snowmobiles. We do, like the Ski-Doo is our biggest, the number one brand in the world. The side by sides, the ATVs. We do three-wheel motorcycles. Also now you must have seen the electric motorcycles, which are amazing to see. So it's a it's an environment which is bigger. The playground is bigger.
Mm.
So coming from Harley, I came as an expert for a certain project, and now I'm dealing, or like I'm helping to develop the accessory side of the business of the products. So I'm taking care of like the two-wheel, three-wheel, and the ski snowmobile products. Soon they will add something else to that, which is more, I can't talk, but there is a plan going on. So that's where it is. So I'm kind of like enjoying the new challenge given to me.
Now that we have talked about so many things, I want to come to the final part of this podcast. And I want to tell you that most of our audience, they are the aspiring design students or aspiring motorcycle designers or the designers like me who are already working there. So, what would be your advice to all of us through your wisdom and through your experience, whatever you have noticed, if you have to tell like couple of things, part of the advice or the concluding note for this podcast, I would love to hear that.
It's not wisdom of words. Somebody who gave me, like Mr. Tamburini or VDG or some seniors who gave me the education, was be humble. First of all, be humble to the world. Uh, when you make contacts, keep them alive. Don't kill them, or don't make it a situation for or for yourself. It's always good to have in connection with several people, and not just design.
Hmm.
If you want to learn a lot, you might have to talk to a couple of them who are from not from design background at all. I have people who are from medicine background, who are my good friends, and they might tell me something which I have not heard. That is also a learning aspect of your life. I watch a lot of podcasts which are in investment banking or something, which is totally outside of my profession. I'm passionate about design, but then those podcasts of investment tell me how things are working in the world, what is going to happen, where the shift is going. Like, lithium investment is great, becoming big. Okay, that means there is going to be these EV things coming down. You read that. So reading is a great habit also. Like, sketching, practicing, these things are very common things. But with that, you need to add a little bit of your own time to develop yourself. Also, language, how fluent you are, how good at in English or whichever language you are. Because sometimes you might be the coolest sketching kid in the class or in the studio. But if you can't express it when your management stands in front of you, and you end up becoming just a like, you stop. It doesn't go well. And then they realize, okay, this sketch is good, but he can't express, so maybe that idea is not that good. And just for that sake, somebody else sketch might get picked because he has expressed well, and then we start feeling we are lost. So let's not get lost because of that. See all the aspects of life. That's very important. Enjoy design, enjoy life. I would always say, like, don't stress it. We are getting paid for getting drawing. Because, at the end of the day, we get paid to sketch.
Yeah.
It's one of the coolest thing. The guy who sits next to me, he's a junior designer. I just told him, can you imagine? we get paid, or you and I, both of us get paid to sketch and dream for the world who doesn't even know what we are doing, but they think they are telling us, or something is going on, but it's at the end, it's a flow.
Yeah.
And you are getting paid for it. So, wow. It was a passion, it was a hobby. Chetan's hobby or Saket's hobby converts into a profession and you're getting paid. What else can be cool? So let's be respectful, be humble, learn more things. It's simple as that. And then, most important thing is you need to go through a little bit of struggle. Nothing is going to be spoon fed to you, right? Nobody's going to spoon feed you. Nobody. It's going to be cruel. Let's be honest. It's okay. Take it on.
Yeah. What a powerful note to finish this podcast, because when you were saying these things, even I was kind of retrospecting into my own journey. And yeah, sometimes you wonder that while working and all, you sketch, you enjoy, and then some eureka moment happens, and then you realize, okay, this is such an enjoyable process which I was probably doing since my childhood, or you also, like everyone, and we are getting paid for that. So that's such a wonderful thing, I would say. And as you said, design is fun, it's an enjoyable process, and one should enjoy that. I would say there couldn't have been a more powerful and a nicer note to end this conversation. Chetan, thank you so much once again for being here. It's an amazing pleasure. Sorry for all the hassles we had.
No,
We
it's
had to go through this. We had, like, for those who didn't know, there were several moments where we had to stop the podcast, but we made it through, and I'm so happy that we have done it. Thanks for being so patient about all this, and truly, once again, thank you so much.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, take care.